It sucks because we're getting to the point where baseball will be done for 2021, but it's been an exciting postseason so far, full of great games. Can you hear me now? 4. Can you hear me now? Cannot hear me. Hold on.
Flicked our baseball show with that game because that could have been a rough conflicting period, talking about what the World Series could look like. Game 7's awesome. We didn't get one so far. We still have one more potential with the World Series, but the Braves, they knocked off the Dodgers who beat them last year and also in 2018 in the NLDS. So the Braves got some revenge on that point. Mm-hmm. It was a great series, and the Braves, they went 3-0 in Turner Field, and they were able to take one game at Dodger Stadium. That's all they needed. It was starting to look like maybe it could have repeated what happened last year. The Braves go up 2-0. Dodgers come back, win Game 3. Braves win Game 4 to force the Dodgers in elimination. And the Dodgers win Game 5 to stay alive. But the Braves were able to go home and win Game 6 in front of their home crowd and be able to celebrate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely. I mean, I'm just shocked with how it kind of went. I mean, it's very interesting. We talked a little bit about it last week, and I mentioned that this was kind of the matchup I think the Braves as a team probably wanted after last year. You go up 3-1 with all your stars, including Acuna, healthy, and you still fall short. Dodgers came back and won that series in 7 games, and they went up 3-1 again this year. And I kind of for a second was like, obviously this is a great spot to be in. And normally you would be like, okay, if you're up 3-1 in a series, your chances are pretty good, obviously. So you can sit there as a fan, if you're a fan of a team that's in that position, and be comfortable at least a little bit and confident in saying we're probably going to advance. But after last year, I was like, I'll just kind of believe it when I see it. And I stuck by that till the end because the Dodgers came back and they won Game 5 and they blew out the Braves. And then I was like, okay, see, this is kind of what you're expecting. And then I think the big turn, and honestly, it might have costed LA the series, but the fact that Scherzer was not able to go in Game 6. And I have to believe that if he started that game and was able to, he was going to give his best. Knowing who Max Scherzer is, knowing that situation, he's their best guy. They need him in a game like that. And obviously he wasn't healthy. And so that was a big thing I think that the Braves took advantage of. And they jumped on it. And, when you're in a situation like that against a team like the Dodgers, who at any point can just flip it on its ear and start playing incredibly good baseball that they're capable of playing again, you just have to take advantage of those little things, those managerial miscues. And boy, Dave Roberts had a lot of them in this series. And the Braves did just that. And those mistakes become amplified in the postseason environment. So, kudos to Atlanta for getting this far without Acuna, without a good chunk, without a lot of guys who are unhealthy or dealing with some other things. And, it's pretty incredible to see an 88-win team, bag a 106-win team in a 7-game series. But
baseball.
You kind of saw it coming. And again, I feel like you kind of saw when the matchup was happening again, a rematch of last year's NLCS. At least in my opinion, I was like, I feel like the Braves are gonna play their best baseball. They want to get some revenge from last year, and they did just that.
Ryan, what were your thoughts?
Can you guys hear me?
Still can't get him. I'm just gonna turn all the mics on and see whichever one picks you up.
All right.
No, we don't
Nothing?
have you.
Nothing?
Go find a different mic, Ryan.
Okay. I will go
They're
running
all
around
on.
the studio.
You just gotta pick a mic and just start talking.
Maybe you should come in this room and try and pick up Mike too.
Might as well. You gotta put a mask on. Anyways,
Yeah.
I'll give my thoughts on it while Ryan's trying to figure it out. But the way that the Braves were able to just respond every single time that the Dodgers were punching back, with the exceptions of Game 3 when Cody Bellinger hit that magical 3-run home run, it was super impressive, and it was super fascinating to watch a squad take down a team like the Dodgers that are so homegrown when this Braves team had an outfield of guys that were all on different teams at the beginning of July. Pitching staff that was kind of going through it. It's very similar to the pitching staff last year that was meh. But this year, they were incredible, and they just showed up every single time the Dodgers had a punch. And Eddie Rosario
Oh my God.
was amazing
Yes,
in
he
this
was.
series. And there were some talks on Twitter about building a statue for him in front of Truist Park. But that home run that he hit in Game 6 off Walker Buehler to get the Braves up 4-0, which was all that they needed at that point, super impressive.
Yeah.
And it's not always the big names. It's the smaller moves that sometimes fly under the radar. We haven't always seen these big moves pay off, and we saw Max Scherzer, Trey Turner. Trey Turner didn't do anything in this series. He only had
No,
singles.
exactly.
Max Scherzer was only able to pitch in game, what was it, 4?
Yeah.
No, I think it was game 2. So the way that the series ended up going around, it really showed what the value of the trade deadline is. Sometimes the big move isn't always the best move.
No, it's not.
It's the move that's best for your team. The Dodgers didn't need Trey Turner. Obviously, no one's going to say, well, trading for Trey Turner was a bad trade, because Trey Turner is an incredible player. He's one of the best shortstops in baseball, but guess where he wasn't playing? Shortstop.
He wasn't playing shortstop.
He's playing second base, which made Gavin Lux play the outfield, which had him drop that fly ball, and like all of this.
All the little things. And I think it goes a little bit back to the way this series was managed by Dave Roberts. And that's a whole nother point in and of itself. I mean, in my opinion, and of course, managers aren't flawless, and we've talked about this before. There's countless examples that we can point to and say, well, this kind of proves that. Like, look at Kevin Cash, But Dave Roberts, for a guy who's been there, for a guy who's been in this situation, frankly, every single year he's been a manager, you'd think in a situation like this, he wouldn't make as many kind of blatant. I mean, why is Steven Souza Jr. playing right field? Why is he even on a playoff roster? That's no real shot to Souza, but to be completely honest, the Dodgers are better than that. I mean, they've got to be better than that. Why is a guy like that playing right field in big games in a series where the pennant's on the line? I mean, there's that. There's the way that the bullpen was kind of managed and things like that. It was a little bit of a disaster, particularly early in the series. And I really think that was a key that Atlanta just kind of capitalized on. They figured it out, and it ended up working out for them. But you talked a little bit about Eddie Rosario, and I don't maybe know about building a statue for the guy, but I will say this: he should never have to pay for another meal in Atlanta again. I mean, he's hitting 474 this postseason with 3 home runs, a big one, like you said, in Game 6 there off of Buehler. I think that really propelled them to victory. And yeah, I mean, that the wholesale changes in that outfield, I think, at least me personally, I looked at those moves and sort of scratching my head. I was kind of like, I mean, this feels like, they're in desperation mode. They just got to figure something out. And even though they're still in the race, it's like this doesn't seem like one of those moves that kind of gets you over the top. And it's been the exact opposite. Peterson and Rosario in particular have been critical for this team down the stretch. So is Duvall. And I just think it's really interesting to see how that, like you said, it kind of pays off over time. It's like you said, sometimes the smaller moves that don't, get as noticed as much or fly under the radar that sometimes actually are the ones that end up winning you the big games. And that's exactly what these moves did.
Ryan, do we have you now?
Can you hear me?
We
Yes.
can. All right, cool.
There we go. We can now hear me. So this series shocked me. I think that I expected it to be a complete flip from last year. I just thought that the pitching for the Braves would not be able to keep up and shut down the Dodgers offense. And boy, was I wrong. The pitching from the Braves really did a great job shutting down that Dodger offense. The only game where they really got anything going was Game 5 when they exploded for 11 runs.
Right.
So that's where they really got it going. And then you can maybe say Game 3, but it was all from Bellinger and Betts in that 7th or 8th inning. And other than that, they were shut down.
Mhm.
And then the bullpen really did not look that great for the Dodgers. They gave up a lot of runs late. Buehler did not look good really in either of his starts.
No.
I didn't expect too much from him yesterday though, because he's pitching on 3 days rest.
Mhm.
So I expected some fatigue. But my question is for Dave Roberts, where's Brusdar Graterol? Because you saw last year, he pitched really well in that series, and when they came back down 3-1, and you didn't really see him at all.
No.
I really expect them to maybe go 2-3 innings with Buehler, then go to Graterol,
Mhm.
which would have been what I would have done as a manager. But I think that for the Dodgers, what it comes down to is, yeah, they had injuries, but you can't say that at all because look at the Braves. They were without Jorge Soler for the majority of this postseason. They don't have their best player in Ronald Acuna Jr., and they don't have arguably their best pitcher in Mike Soroka. So, yeah, the Dodgers were hurt by injuries, but at the same time, their offense just went dead. And the Braves did a great job capitalizing on those mistakes, like you guys mentioned, from what Dave Roberts gave them.
Mhm.
They made sure they took care of that opportunity. Eddie Rosario, difference maker in this series.
Mhm.
And the thing is, when the Braves made these trades at the deadline, I did not think that they were going to lead to this. Jock Peterson has been crucial for them throughout the postseason with Jocktober and coming up with great hits when they need them. And then look at what Rosario's done. He's been incredible. Like you said, Blues batted over 400. He's the NLCS MVP. What he has done has been incredible. And looking at them now, compared to where they were even before the Acuna injury,
Right.
is incredible to see.
Yeah, obviously you want to have Ronald Acuna Jr. out there.
Of course.
But I've been joking when everyone's like, "Oh, imagine what they'd be doing with Ronald Acuna Jr." And it's like, well, there's no guarantee that he'd be better than Rosario, Peterson, Soler, any
He
of
would've
these
made
guys.
those trades.
Duvall, well, yeah, they
Exactly, yeah.
might have made a couple of them,
Yeah.
but like Rosario, he was out all of August. They
Mhm.
probably don't make that trade if Acuna is still there. So
I agree.
the way that this team has been built was built because of Acuna Jr. getting hurt. And so everyone's like, well, if they have Acuna Jr., I don't know. I don't know what this team looks like.
Yeah, exactly.
They played nearly 100 games with him, and they were below 500 for every single one of those games. So
Yeah.
I think that, him getting hurt is not a blessing in disguise, but they might have missed the playoffs had Acuna Jr. stayed healthy because what he was playing like in the first half of the season, he wasn't going to get any better than that over the
Yeah.
second half of the season. I mean, if he did, that would have been awesome.
Yeah.
That would have been like one of the best baseball seasons of all time. But at the same time, going out and getting those 4 guys because Acuna was hurt ended up being the best thing for the Braves. And you got to hope that Acuna Jr. is able to come back healthy because that's obviously critical for their
Yeah.
future. One player we need to talk about that hasn't been talked about yet, left-handed relief pitcher Tyler Matzek.
Yes.
He was
Crucial.
a baller in this series. He had 6 innings. He had 11 strikeouts. He came in with in Game 6, runners on second and third.
Yeah.
Struck out Albert Pujols Jr. Junior. Hey, maybe is it?
I think you mean Steven Souza.
Yeah, then Steven Souza Jr. and then Mookie Betts to get out of the inning without allowing any runs, hold that Braves lead at 2, and then he came out and pitched the 8th inning too. Didn't allow a run. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
you can't make this stuff up. And then you talk about his story with him having the yips and being out of Major League Baseball for 5 years, it makes it even better. And seeing stories like this, there's always one or two every single postseason. I think it's Tyler Matzek this postseason, and I hope that he can continue to pitch like this in the World Series because that would be awesome. He also didn't allow any runs in the NLDS too.
Looking at it for him, you said he had that 5-year break because of the whole Yip situation. Last year, you really saw what he could be for this bullpen. He had a 2.79 ERA in 29 innings or 23 innings. I can't remember which number. It's 29 last year. He was great for them last year. And then this year, he's been a staple of that bullpen. And he got out of one of the toughest jams because if you're the Dodgers, who else do you want up there other than Mookie Betts with runners at second and third and 2 outs? You have one of your best hitters up at the plate.
Right.
You're not going to complain. You're happy with that. And he got out of it. So he's been huge for them.
Yeah, and another. I mean,
in general was and is there even without Acuna. But it's always is going to come down to the pitching, and it's going to come down to that when they ultimately face Houston, which I think if they can continue to do and carry over what they did against the Dodgers, they'll be just fine in that department.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how this Braves team continues to get this magic rolling against the Houston Astros, who won the ALCS. They've made it to 5 straight championship series, and now they've been in 3 out of the last 5 World Series, which is super impressive, a la the San Francisco Giants of the last decade. The Giants were even years.
Mhm.
The Astros are odd years. So I just want to point that out. 2017, 2019, and now 2021. The Astros, as far as we're concerned, are not cheating anymore. So credit to them for making the World Series while not cheating. Like I said, it's as far as we know.
Yeah.
Astros, they win game 1, and it was a very competitive game. They only won by 1. Kike Hernandez hit 2 home runs in this game. It was awesome. But you're looking at it and you're just saying, all right, this should be a very competitive series.
Yeah.
Next 2 games, Red Sox just blow them out of the water.
Right.
And you're saying, I don't know where this series is going to go because you look at it, the Astros, they won a game. They're the favorites coming in. But the Red Sox are the hotter team right now.
right.
And they've just killed them 2 times in a row. And you're sitting there like, all right, they can do this. And then they're winning in game 4, blow it late, controversial non-strike 3 call against Jason Castro. From that point on, the series was all Astros. The Red Sox lineup fell apart, and the Astros ended up winning this in 6 games. They also won in front of their home crowd, so it's always a little bit cooler. The players, I think, they enjoy winning it in front of their home crowds, get to enjoy the experience with the fans.
Absolutely.
What did you guys think of this ALCS?
Cole, before you go, I think we may have a reason for why the Red Sox fell apart. Dom, you tweet something out after game 3. Boston slam Sox. And right after
The great equalizer.
the bats went dead.
It was just like how Fox Sports San Diego in 2020 they put up like the slam counter for the Padres,
And then it
didn't
was
hit a
over.
single one last year. So
So
Yeah.
I think you might have jinxed the Red Sox offense
go ahead and blame me for the rest.
into
of
falling apart.
Boo.
Checks out.
No, I thought. I mean,
I think we all kind of sat here last week and sort of said, looked at this series and said, Boston definitely has their hands full. First off, the fact that they were able to get as far as they did with the expectations that were pinned on them is nothing short of impressive. And I think if you're a Boston fan, if you're a Red Sox fan, be encouraged for the future because it doesn't seem like this team really needs to go through a rebuild or is in rebuild mode. They might be 1 or 2 really key pieces away, particularly in that within the pitching staff from really being a World Series contender. So it's kind of crazy to see how far they got, and as well as the Giants, obviously, as well. But in terms of the series, I thought these are two really good offenses. Obviously, they slugged all year. They were really good, obviously from a lineup perspective. And so you kind of had the idea that, you're going to see some high scoring games. You're going to see a lot of offense, and we got a lot of that for sure. But I truly think, and going back to the point you made about the non-call against Jason Castro and everything just kind of fell apart from there. I truly think that was like just the turning point. And you look at something like that, because from that point forward, it was just all Houston, and they just dominated. They won the next game at Fenway, took the series back to Houston, and were able to get the job done. So it's interesting to see that play out. But in terms of, it's obvious who stood out. Amongst others, Yordan Alvarez was obviously incredible. 522 this series with a home run. Really, really just impressive overall, and definitely did his job. And it's crazy to see him. That was a steal of a trade when they got him from the Dodgers. You kind of
Josh Fields.
Yeah, you're kind of reminded of those things when you see guys like this go off. He did what he was acquired to do, and that's hit. So that was big for them as well. I thought another big moment in this series as well was Martin Maldonado, that strike him out, throw him out, double play in Game 6. That was huge as well. Runners on the corners with one out. Kendall Graveman, a good part of the Red Sox lineup, was up, and they were able to get out of it without allowing a single run. So yeah, you looked at big moments like that, but overall, Houston, I think Houston does deserve to be here. Even after being a few years removed from everything that sort of was leaked about what happened in 2017 and stuff like that. Good for Dusty Baker. Good for Houston, sort of proving that they can do it without it. It is a little sad that you look back on that and say, well, if this only proves that they were just that good, and they still can get as far without having to do what they did before. But still, it's good to see that, and to sort of even if regardless if you're a hater or not, to just from a team perspective, it's like, hey, let's shut them up, and they did just that. So
right, and there's still a lot of stuff that remains undiscovered about the whole cheating scandal, like how far were the Astros going, the buzzers. Former players have come out and said, the Dodgers were cheating. I've heard the Brewers were cheating. We know the Yankees were cheating, and baseball's covering that up.
The Padres were cheating.
Well, the Padres had nothing to cheat for, so and then the Red Sox, they got caught cheating on a much lesser extent. At least that's what the reports say. So a lot of that is still like kind of under the water.
There's so much we do not know.
So to see the Astros do it without cheating, it makes you say, all right, well, that makes me feel a little bit better, but also we wish that you just didn't do it in the first place, which is what you were trying to say. Ryan, what were your thoughts on this ALCS?
I think that Cole, I agree with you. The turning point was that no called strike three on Castro. I think that was really the turning point in this series. And it just had the wind out of the sail for the Red Sox.
Yeah.
Because they just lost it. Their bats went dead. They just weren't in it. And then they get something going in Game 6, and everything was wiped out when Verdugo got caught stealing. And here's the thing on that. He should not have gone. Because looking at the replay, you saw he was walking off the bag as Graveman's getting ready to pitch. He's set, ready to go.
Right.
And Verdugo gets a horrible jump.
And I don't quite remember if they put like the hit and run on. I don't remember if there was a swing at that time. Like, it would make a little bit more sense if they did something like that. Even then, that's a very risky move to do in a high leverage situation in an elimination game.
Yeah,
but it would make more sense if they put him in motion to try and get a hit and run or some trickery going. But I don't think they did that. And I agree. If you're trying to do a straight steal second with Alex Verdugo, matching up against Martin Maldonado, who's one of the best arms at the position in the league.
Yeah.
That's not exactly that's not a great that's not really a great matchup in terms of that. That's concerned if you're Verdugo and the Red Sox. So the fact that they even set them was a little bit of a curious case there. But yeah, I mean that was definitely. I mean that's a play you look back on and say like that's how you propel yourself, and that's how from the other side, the losing perspective, that's how you cost yourself a shot at a World Series. That's how your season ends, kind of.
The Red Sox were last in Major League Baseball in stolen bases
Yes.
during the
Mhm.
regular season. So
Again, I'm not disagreeing with the call to send him there. I think it's that when you see him walking off of the bag, just getting off the bag,
Yeah.
as he's set, as a first base coach, you just say, no, you stay. Because that's what made the difference. He's off the bag, he has a real lead and gets a real jump. Then, yeah, I think he's safe. And you know what? That makes a difference.
Mhm.
With 2 outs, you got second and third coming up. So, but overall, that's just what took it out. Shout out to Luis Garcia.
Yeah.
What he did in Game 6 was incredible. He shut down that Red Sox offense, and we were all worried with Lance McCullers being out for the entire series,
Mhm.
and yet the young guys, Valdez and Garcia, came up clutch and pitched very well.
Yeah.
And they're a
Well-
huge reason why they advanced.
well, the people who deserve the credit are the Astros bullpen.
Yes,
Because in games,
That's true.
in
Yes.
games 2, 3, and 4, the Red Sox jumped out early, scoring in the first inning in all 3 games.
Yes.
Getting on the board, or I think Game 4 was the second inning, but got the lead.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they're starting to look like, okay, we have to go with the bullpen again. But the
Mhm.
bullpen was able to do it over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Christian Javier was kind of their long distance guy. They also went with a couple of other pitchers who had some starting pitching experience.
Yeah.
They're able to survive until Framber Valdez, who prior to this postseason, which is last postseason, was really, really good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He showed it in
Yeah.
Game 5. He was awesome.
Yeah.
And then Luis Garcia, who was really, really good in this 2021 season, was really, really bad in his first 2 postseason
Yeah.
starts.
Mhm.
And you're sitting there, you're like, all right, what are these Astros starting pitchers doing? And a big part of the reason why I picked the Astros to win the World Series at the beginning of this postseason is because I like the offense and the starting pitching. And it just wasn't there. But games 5 and 6 quickly turned around for them, and they were super impressive to end the series. Keeps their bullpen rested
Yeah.
Yeah.
going into this World Series. Obviously, they've had 2 off days now, and Game 1 is going to be on Tuesday. We'll talk about the World Series in a little bit when we come back from a quick break. But the bullpen's going to be extremely rested, so you gotta hope they're not rusty. But it's good to have some rest.
Absolutely.
They're big guys. Ryan Presley, I think Stanek, they were in there to close out Game
Yeah.
6. So those
Stanek
guys-
came in for the 8th, and then Preston came in for the 9th. Of course.
Yeah. Graveman, I think, had an inning or 2 in there as well.
Yeah, so they're big guys, should be good. It's going to be about the other guys. Christian Javier, they're going to
Yeah.
need him at some point because,
Yeah.
it's baseball. One of your starters in the postseason when you're facing these really good lineups, they aren't going to have their A stuff.
All right.
Phil Maton, they're the lefty, I forget his name, Luke Rayleigh.
Yeah.
They're going to need those guys to be able to not be rusty, come in, be rested, throw hard, spin the ball extra hard. That's what the Astros have been very good at. So that's something I'm going to be looking for. But yes, like
Yeah.
you mentioned, Luis Garcia and Framber Valdez,
Yeah.
they were
absolutely.
unbelievable.
Shoved.
Valdez is one of the most poised pitchers I've ever seen. He reminds me a lot of Justin Verlander. He just kind of goes out there.
Yeah.
It looks like he's not worried at all. And it's something that not a lot of people talk about. Like, you look at Zach Greinke, he's kind of like, walking all over the place. Somehow he's good in the postseason because Zach Greinke's one of a kind. But there's some other pitchers that are, kind of in between, like Max Scherzer. I wouldn't say poise is a strength, but he just goes out there and dominates you.
Yeah.
But Valdez just kind of walks around on the mound. Like, he's super calm and relaxed, and he's got that sinker, that curveball. And it just works, and he's a super fun pitcher to watch because he just looks like he's in total control of everything on the mound, even when it's not going well
Yeah.
for him. And for a pitcher of his age to have that, I think it's super impressive.
Yeah, kind of what he does is a little bit of a lost art, pitching to contact. He's not a big strikeout guy. Sinkers, changeups, down in the zone, getting guys to roll over for like 1-2 pitch outs. He's very classic in that regard. So you don't really see too many pitchers of his that possess the same kind of qualities anymore. And he's one of those. He's one of the few, and I think that's what sort of sets him apart. And it shows how effective those guys still are in today's game.
It really is, because those guys, they're a lost art, especially with
Yeah.
the spin rate on the fastball going up. You see less and less guys with the sinker. And some of those guys, they still throw the sinker, but they throw like power sinkers, like Bruce Dark Gratterall.
Yeah.
So there are guys that use that to be effective, but he has one of the highest ground ball rates in baseball, and he can strike out guys. His curveball is really good.
Yeah.
But the way that I've seen some teams combat it is just take them the opposite field,
Right.
and you're able to fight off the ground balls and put them in
Right.
in the holes.
Yeah.
Because that's how you get it.
But it just shows that even just like any pitcher, he has the strikeout in his back pocket, but he doesn't need to go to that. And in a game like Game 5, where he was able to stay in the game as long as he did, he went 8 innings, which is huge again for the bullpen and moving forward. Keep those guys rested. I think he kind of understood. Hey, I'm facing a really good offensive lineup to begin with. I don't need to get the strikeout. Let me just try and stay in this game and help these guys as much as I can for as long as I can, and just get the ground ball. And he did just that.
I agree. Looking at Valdez, just like you said, on that poise, his ability to attack and not have to rely on the strikeout. You're seeing such high strikeout numbers nowadays, and that's really, like you said, Cole, it's a lost art of how you can pitch around it. Like, it's great to have it in your back pocket, but the ability to go out and pitch to contact, trust your defense, that's really what helps you gain that confidence on the mound.
Absolutely.
It's being able to trust your defense. He's had great defense behind him, and that approach also makes it more effective when he goes to the strikeout pitch with his curveball. So what he's been able to do has been incredible, and he's a huge reason why the Astros are where they're at right now.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go to a quick break here on the Golden Sombrero Show on BlazeRadioOnline.com. When we come back, some of our predictions for what we think is going to happen here in the Fall Classic.
Listening to Blaze Radio, your local news station.
All right, we got about a minute, so we'll talk about the World Series when we come back. Give our predictions, and then if we have time, we'll talk about the Cardinals hire. But that's also something we could talk about next week, because we're only gonna have World Series games to talk about next week. So, but we have about 25 minutes left.
We got the best powers and your favorite Bit Major
Perfect.
programs all covered every single week. So make your party plan
Yeah.
at College Bonanza every Sunday night.
Yeah, that's what I said. So we'll see how much time we have left.
There might be more coaching
Don't
hires
miss
this
out
week
on the
too.
weekends.
Anyway, that we can just
Final
start sprinkling there as well.
You might show up to the hunt.
Maybe.
I'm Tyler Budge. I'm Hayden Weber. I'm Cole Almodovar. And together we are the Pacific Point of View. Catch us live on Blaze Radio Tuesdays at 5:30 for Pac-12 football
With
content.
10 seconds.
Also check out Spotify, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and potentially TikTok. Now, Budge, take us out.
With that, we wave goodbye.
Welcome back into the Bill Austin Radio Studio on BlazeRadioOnline.com. Dominic Stern, Ryan Blank, and Cole Bradley here to discuss the latest in baseball on the Golden Sombrero Show. Guys, it's the World Series week. World Series starts on Tuesday. Going to get games 1 and 2 in Houston for the Astros. They will be hosting the Atlanta Braves. And this was kind of a popular pick preseason, and then about halfway through the season, the Braves, they weren't looking that great. But coming into the postseason, not a lot of people are giving the Braves a lot of credit. People in the AL were talking about the Yankees, even the Red Sox, the Rays, and the White Sox were getting a lot of buzz because, their preseason expectations and all the talent there. But the Astros are the one that came out on top. So we'll go to you first, Cole. What are some things you're going to be looking at for this World Series?
I'd say just to start, I'm really going to look at how Atlanta's able to just carry over, everything they've done well, but particularly the pitching, into yet another series against a very imposing and threatening offense and lineup. And obviously it's not the Dodgers, but the Astros are sort of in the same regard in the American League in terms of offense and depth as well. So it'd be interesting to see how I know Charlie Morton's starting game 1. to see how he, Max Fried, those guys are able to kind of work through this series and get into a groove and figure out a way to secure some big wins potentially for Atlanta in winning this series. So that's a big thing I'm looking at for sure is how Atlanta's pitching sort of carries over. And like you said, they're not going to be as rested as Houston's staff is going to be coming in. And granted, it's a matter of days we're talking about in terms of difference. But still, I mean, any extra rest you can get is huge. So I'd be interested to see how that plays out. But yeah, that's sort of the biggest thing for me. I think if they can key in on that and do everything they've really done well so far, they have a shot at really winning this thing. And again, it's kind of crazy to say that, when you're talking about an 88 win team without some of their best players. We've obviously already talked about that quite a bit. But I think that's the pitching. It's continuing and bringing that momentum forth and moving forward is huge.
Ryan, what are you looking forward to?
I think there's a couple things. I think first off is the Braves pitching. It's been shockingly great. I did not expect it to be like this. They've been able to shut down. It's not a great Milwaukee Brewers offense that they shut down, but an offense that had been much better than we anticipated coming into the season. And an offense that was really been great over the second half once they got Adames and Eduardo Escobar.
Mm-hmm.
But then they shut down the best lineup in baseball in the Dodgers. And I think that if you're able to stay away from the home run ball, not give any of those out, they've surrendered 11 so far in 10 games. But if they're able to do that, stay away from the home run ball, then I think this pitching staff could really keep up the momentum that they've had throughout the entire postseason. The other thing I'm looking for is, where does Jorge Soler fit in? Like, we haven't seen him because he's had dealing with COVID-19. So where does he come in? Where's his impact? So that's something else I'm looking at.
Well, fortunately for the Braves and for Jorge Soler, in games 1 and games 2, there will be a DH because it's going to be played in an American League ballpark.
Yeah.
So they'll get an extra bat in that lineup, which is, I assume, where Soler is going to fit in. Because when you look at it, he was playing right field with Jock Peterson coming off the bench
Yes.
in the NLDS. And then, of course, Jock Peterson, he pops off. Jorge Soler, he tests positive for COVID-19. He has to go sit down. And Peterson continues to do well. So I'd expect going into the series that he's not going to be in the starting lineup in the outfield. However, because there's the DH,
Right.
you're going to see that. And you're really going to see who is the hot bat after these 2 games, because you're going to get the day off and then they're going to resume play on Friday.
Yes.
And that's when things are really going to be interesting, because for the first time in a couple of weeks, the Braves are going to have their 4 outfield bats healthy, and they can only have 3 spots really to play them, because Soler, he wasn't going to start in game 6, returning from COVID-19. That just would have made no sense. So that is a very interesting storyline. What I'm curious to see is the Braves, they were giving up base runners to the Dodgers because they're a very disciplined team, as are the Astros. However, Cole, you mentioned it.
Mm-hmm.
They were able to just get out of jams. The Dodgers weren't doing anything with runners in scoring position. How are they going to be able to do that against the Astros, who have been a really good team with runners in scoring position all year and in the postseason? The Astros had the second best scoring lineup in baseball in the regular season, and they've had the best scoring lineup in the postseason thus far. So how is that matchup going to play? Are the Braves going to come back down to earth a little bit? Are the Astros not going to be as good with runners in scoring position now? They're facing like a hotter pitching staff.
Yeah.
I think that's a very big storyline that I'm really looking forward to. Another thing is Max Fried, who was one of the best pitchers in the second half of baseball and did really good in his first 2 postseason starts, which was one against the Brewers where he went 6 scoreless, and then another one against the Dodgers in game 1 where he absolutely owned them.
Yeah.
His second start at Dodger Stadium, I saw something about him tipping his pitches. His leg kick was a little bit shorter on his off-speed pitches.
Mm-hmm.
Is he going to be able to adjust from that? Is he going to not be tipping pitches this time around? And even if he is he going to be able to overcome it? Because the Dodgers, they shelled him. They're able to win game 5 and send it back to Atlanta where they ended up losing. The Astros team is going to punish you. They have guys that are right-handed batters, and they have guys that are left-handed bats. Their top 7, which is the 7 guys that they really love to play, they have 3 left-handed bats. Brantley, Tucker, Alvarez. They have 4 right-handed bats: Gurriel, Altuve, Correa, and Bregman. So they're a balanced lineup. So you can't be able to get away with him throwing that slider as much, a pitch that's more effective to lefties than it is to righties.
Right.
He's going to have to rely more on his best off-speed pitch, which is his curveball, playing that off the fastball. So the way he's going to be able to mix and match pitches, I think, is going to be extremely fascinating to watch because that lineup is super. It's more balanced than the Dodgers lineup, and I think that the Dodgers lineup, which is more right-handed, and we saw that they were able to take advantage of that in Game 5. No Max Muncy, of course, that changes things.
Yes.
That is something that I'm going to be interested in seeing because Fried, he's going to be very important to them because their bullpen pitched a lot in this past series, as did the Astros bullpen. But they're going to need a good start for Max Fried. He last pitched, on Thursday. So I'd like to think that he'd be available on Wednesday for Game 2. The Braves haven't announced their Game 2 starter. Cole, you said Charlie Morton starting.
Yeah.
He'll be going up against Framber Valdez. No team has announced their Game 2 starter, but I think that's just because all hands are going to be on deck, and they're just going to see, all right, well, we'll see how things go. But I'd assume that it goes probably to Luis Garcia in Game 2.
Yeah.
I think it'd be Fried and Garcia Game 2. That would be my prediction.
And then wherever,
Greinke Game 3 or something like that.
Yeah.
or maybe you want to start Greinke at home because we know he's a little weirdo. But so Dusty Baker, he's got to have some decisions to make. But at the same time, Luis Garcia starting on the road again in the postseason probably isn't another great idea. So those decisions are going to be very fascinating. Dusty Baker, he's back in the World Series for the first time since
He
the
led the
Giants
Giants there in 2002.
and
Lost in 7 games.
They did. Well, they were winning in the 8th inning, I believe, in Game 6 against the Angels. Absolutely blew it. And then in the 9th inning, Barry Bonds hit that just absolutely monstrous home run that you see, and then you don't see the ball anymore because he hit the ball so far.
And I forget who's in the dugout, but he says you can read his lips, and he's like, "That's the furthest hit ball I've ever seen." It's one of the funniest videos.
But Don, you bring up a great point. I think that the Astros have, the most balanced lineup that we've seen in a while, and I think they use that to their strengths a lot because they pair Brantley, who's more of a contact hitter, will get on base a lot, with Alvarez, who's got that powerful swing, but is also able to get on base. So I think that if you're the Braves, like both of you said, you got to stay out of jams because this Astros offense will make you pay. You got to get out early. You don't want to go deep into innings because that means you're going to end up taxing your bullpen. And both bullpens were taxed in the championship series. So coming down to it, the Braves, like you said, have to get out of jams, have to avoid them as well.
Yeah, and then another key player I think for the Braves is Luke Jackson. He started off this postseason really well. He was dominant. He was pitching in their 8th inning role. And then come Game 3 against the Dodgers, he's pitching in that high leverage situation where basically if they get out of it, they're going to win because they're going to go to the 9th and hand the ball to Will Smith, who's been really good of late.
Yeah.
But he allows a 3-run home run to Cody Bellinger that ends up tying up the game. That tied up the game.
Yeah, that tied it.
And then they ended up winning. Didn't pitch until Game 6. He struggled. He's the guy that put Tyler Matzek in the jam in Game 6. So he's going to need to be able to bounce back in the series because the Braves are going to need all the bullpen guys that they can handle because with your starters, Morton, Fried, who else they got? Who's their third starter?
Ian Anderson.
Yeah, Ian Anderson. How can I forget him? They're only going to be able to ask so much out of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you come around and you look at the bullpen, they don't have a ton of great guys. They have Chavez, who's been good. They have Jackson, who they need. They have Will Smith at the back end. They have Matzek. Outside of that, there's not a whole lot of great relievers. So they're going to need Luke Jackson because, the whole recipe is get your starter 5 or 6 innings, and then you hand the ball off to your last 3 or 4 guys. But if Luke Jackson isn't that guy, all of a sudden now they only have 3 guys. And when one of your starting pitchers doesn't do that 5 or 6 innings like you'd like, now you need to ask more out of your other guys.
Yeah.
And then Luke Jackson might be asked to step up and pitch a little bit more. So I think Jackson, how he's going to rebound from a rough NLCS is going to be another fascinating storyline. And Austin Riley, he had several clutch hits in this series.
Yeah.
Is he going to be able to do that once again against the Astros? Team that is very right-handed pitching dominant. The Dodgers were the same way. So were the Brewers. But Riley, he showed this year he's one of the elite bats in baseball. How is he going to be able to continue to do that in this World Series on the brightest stage against the Astros?
I think looking over at the Astros, you got to get more production from Bregman and Altuve. In the last series, Altuve hit 125, had 3 hits. 2 of them were homers. So you need more production from him. Bregman's been really quiet throughout the entire postseason. So this could be his opportunity to break out and be the difference maker in the series and getting them that trophy. So you need to see Altuve and Bregman pick it up if the Astros want to put pressure on that Braves pitching staff and make them use that bullpen.
Yeah, I think that's another huge thing. I was going to mention it when you were talking a little bit about Luke Jackson and who needs to show up a little bit, but also AJ Minter I think needs to sort of carry over the success. I think he's going to have a much more elevated role as well moving forward. So that's another nice option to have. I think those are all big things. I'd be curious to see a little bit how Dusty Baker sort of manages, like you said, like the rotation or just who's making starts and when this series. Because, like you said, there's a weird thing with Zach Greinke and not wanting to start and being on the road and stuff like that. And so it'll be interesting to see. I think it's going to be a test of. I mean, it always really comes down to this, but I think it's going to be a test of of good managing. Who's able to make the right moves that end up winning you games moving forward. And I think Snicker has done a nice job so far. It's part of the reason the Braves have gotten as far as they have. And I mean, I think it's pretty easy to sit here and say that if you have to peg an underdog, it's the Braves. And the fact they've gotten as far is impressive enough. Now can you finish? Now can you figure it out? Now can you put it together and win a championship here? So that's all those things are going to play are going to factor in a big way in whether or not this team is able to walk away with the ring.
Yeah, and the Braves, they've been doubted all year long.
Mm-hmm.
They're still here. They're one of 2 teams remaining for a reason, so it's going to be fascinating to see. All right, we got about 10 minutes remaining. Let's give our World Series predictions. Ryan, we're going to start with you. Who do you have winning? How many games? And why do you think it's going to be that way?
Give me the Braves in 6. I think that when you look at this team, they've got so many different guys that can make that difference. Like you saw Eddie Rosario. He made the difference in the NLCS. Will John Peterson continue to be a force like he has been throughout the entire postseason? I think Jorge Soler is going to be a big piece of this. If he's able to come in, make that difference, especially use that advantage of having that extra bat with the DH when being at Minute Maid Park, I think that's another big thing to watch. So I think that the Braves have the offense as well as the pitching. If they can get out of jams and avoid them as much as possible, and then make sure they're not taxing that bullpen early in the series, then I think this is their series to lose. I also just don't want the Astros to win. So I'm going to take the Braves in 6.
It's kind of funny. I forget. I'm pretty sure that was this year when we made predictions at the beginning of the year. And I remember saying, I think I said I had the Braves at least going.
I know you had the Braves last year winning the World Series.
Okay, yeah, so it was last year. No, I mean, it's been just interesting to see how this team Atlanta has just almost kind of lumbered its way through the season. With all the injuries and getting hot at the right time, still only winning what is just kind of the weirdest division in baseball in the NL East, and now finding themselves in the World Series. I think throughout my opinion, my sort of opinion on who, or my take on who I think is the most, World Series caliber team has always sort of changed. But I never thought I would be, seeing the Braves do what they're doing now and making it as far as they have. With that being said, I I think they're going to compete. I do not think they're going to win. I have Astros in 6, and I think it really for me just comes down to offensively and just from a lineup perspective. Houston kind of derailed the Red Sox, who were really rolling after a really tough after a battle against the Rays, and after getting hot at the right time, the Yankees in the wild card game, their road, they were hot. Kike Hernandez was rolling. That lineup was rolling. Everything was sort of clicking for Boston. There was a time where I think people were legitimately like, wow, I think Boston's going to make it to the World Series. They flipped it on its ear, and they sealed that ship has sailed. And I think it's going to be the same thing here. I think they're going to derail a hot Braves team that's rolling right now. I think Luis Garcia and Fernando Valdez are going to be a big part of that. And I also think that I think I have faith in Bregman to break out, and those guys who kind of were taking sort of a backseat this past series for them. I think they're going to bounce back. They're going to need to. But yeah, and I think Dusty Baker is also more than deserving of the first ring, and I think he's gotten this far, and I'm sure he's not going to want to blow this one. So he's going to be on his A game throughout as well. So I'm picking Astros in 6, as much as I don't really want to see that happen. It's, I think, the honest answer.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Cole here on the team. I'm going to take Astros in 7 because I think the Braves have some magic and find some wins, especially in Atlanta, where they are 4-0 this postseason. That crowd there is absolutely wild. They've only lost, I think, since it opened. Well, I know they won a game against the Dodgers. They lost 2 absolutely weird games to the Cardinals there in 2019, and 4-0 there this year. So they're clearly playing that home field advantage. So when they go home and they get 3 postseason games there, I think they'll probably go 2-1 in them. And they sneak out a win in Houston out of one of the first 2 games or in Game 6 to extend the series. But I do think the Astros win it in 7. I think the Astros lineup is better than the Braves lineup. I think that the Astros starting pitching staff is just as good. When you look at the 3 guys that they got in Valdez, Garcia, and then Greinke is probably the third one. And then depending on if McCullers can come back, it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. We'll find out Tuesday afternoon when both teams announce their rosters. And I look at the bullpen, and I think that the Astros have a little bit of an advantage just because they have more guys out there than the Braves do. The Braves guys have been very impressive so far this postseason. I don't see any reason why they're not going to be as impressive, but the Astros have more guys out there,
more options.
And they have a better long distance option in Javier than the Braves do. So in case something goes wrong for the Astros, I think they're more equipped to handle it than the Braves. So I will take the Astros in 7. I think it's going to be a great World Series. I picked them to win the World Series at the beginning of this, but I do think that the Astros do win the World Series. All right. We got 2 more minutes. You guys got anything else you want to add leading up to this World Series?
I'm excited. I think that this is I think this is going to be a great series. I think that you see the Braves, who are, in my opinion, the clear underdog in this one, if you had to pick one. And I think that if they can complete this whole underdog story with the World Series, I think it would be incredible. So I'm excited to see how it plays out, even though I hate to get to this point every year knowing that baseball is going to be ending for a few months.
Yeah, that's always the sad part
And
about
it's
it.
even rougher this year knowing what's going to lead up to it in the offseason.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's uncharted waters ahead, to say the least. No, I'm very excited about it as well. I think it'll be a great series. It's just intriguing to see how these things play out. All those mistakes, like we've said before, are amplified when you get down to it. And so far, this is pretty obvious, but when you get to this point in the season, the 2 teams remaining are the 2 teams that made the fewest mistakes. It's the reason why they're here. And that's really going to matter the rest of the way. So we'll see kind of how it goes. I'm really excited to see how it plays out, though. I think a lot of people really wanted that Dodgers-Astros rematch, and you didn't get it, but Atlanta, going back for the first time since.
Me complain, but
Yeah, exactly. Atlanta.
I'm going to complain. Like, I wanted that World Series.
But Atlanta going back for the first time in a long time. I think it's been since '99. The last time they were
lost
there.
the Yankees.
That so that's big for that city. That's big for that team, and I'm sure we're gonna have a heck of a series.
Can the state of Georgia overcome their sports curse? Also, I was waiting to leave
Also-
this nugget.
Also, last thing, my boy Jorge Soler, I want him to get a ring.
All right, there you go. You have it here.
There it is.
Jorge Soler getting a ring from Ryan. But I was waiting to leave this nugget for the end. I've talked about this several times. Last 4 teams to eliminate the Dodgers: 2016 Cubs, 2017 Astros, 2018 Red Sox, and the 2019 Nationals. What do they all have in common? They won the World Series. So the Atlanta Braves, in order to be the best, sometimes you got to beat the best, and it's been the Dodgers. So we'll see if they can do that. Thank you all for listening to the Golden Sombrero Show on BlazeRadioOnline.com. We'll come back to you next Sunday. Hopefully baseball is still going on, but I mean, that would just be a disaster if
Yeah.
the season's over at that point.
Yeah,
So
that would
we
be a
can,
true disaster.
we can talk about more games coming up. We thank you all for tuning in. On behalf of Ryan Blank and Cole Bradley, I'm Dominic Stern. You can catch me and my co-host Nicholas Hodell on the College Basketball Bonanza next on Blaze Radio.